Years ago, in a land far, far away. Well, actually, not that far away, I just moved a few streets since then, but years ago, I tried playing this. It was a broken mess, with the most insane and hilarious machine translation one can possibly imagine.
Very nice. And how do I do it? You see, the information about the emissions from our cat wept. Okay, you see, the information about the emissions from our cat wept. All the data remained in the zone. And you cannot get there, you know. Nobody can do it. We are forced to build only guesses. But we have a very important source of information, which will give you all the necessary information.
Having beaten Stalker 2 and reviewing it on this channel, I've been waiting for them to fix the game and maybe for some overhaul mods to surface. Since I have only ever heard good things about Wind of Time, I decided to check out the ModDB page. Well, what did I expect to see? Maybe some updates, but honestly, I expected something akin to the Barren Wasteland, which is the Dead Air page. However, to my surprise, I stumbled upon the holy grail of Stalker modding, especially when it comes to Russian mods, an improved and corrected translation. Quick disclaimer, I think it's a Russian mod, I'm not sure. While I'm several years late, maybe even fashionably late, faced with that revelation, there was no excuse left. I had to do it. I had to play Wind of Time. Apparently there are also some submods available, some of which were uploaded fairly recently actually. I've only installed one, mainly because it seems to help reduce crashes in this mod, which are, well, frequent. Another quick disclaimer, just in case you want to check out this mod, there are two things I would recommend. Save often in different save slots, quick save even more often, and expect crashes. Even with the add-on I just mentioned, the mod often crashes in areas where there are a lot of NPCs, so primarily in Rostock and the army warehouses. So what is Wind of Time? It's a 2017 mod for Call of Pripyat, the third game in the Stalker series following Shadow of Chernobyl and Clear Sky. Wind of Time is actually a story-driven mod featuring an entirely new narrative that mixes up everything Stalker, introducing a new protagonist and his story. Premise is rather simple. The year is 2048, and time travel has just been invented. We don't get any further explanation to this, but hey, if anything, we're going to use it for something useful then. We play as Ivan Demidov, a military man, as the improved translation refers to him, who is actually sent back in time to prevent a catastrophic blowout that leads to the expansion of the zone beyond the, well, familiar area. And this is also where our story begins. We're dropped in the zone with a basic objective, but how we fulfill it is, well, I would have said entirely up to us, but there's some order to the things we have to do. Time travel aside, I really enjoy this gothic-esque start thrown into an unfamiliar world with minimal resources and a clear overarching objective. Well, it seems that it's up to you how and when you accomplish it. Unfortunately, or fortunately I guess, depending on your tastes, the game lets you jump through a few hoops before truly opening up. So we step into the Chrono Pack, back to 2014 it is, with our goal being to find Professor Kalancha.
Freeze! And don't even think of touching that shooter!
Hands up. Well, that's how we're greeted in the past actually. Our first steps into the zone had to be really lucky ones, since we basically stumbled into a mercenary group who are known for their hospitality and good manners throughout the zone. In any case, you better stay still in this situation, because if you move, they will actually just shoot you. We're armed with a pistol, a quite normal Stalker suit, and a shitty AK, so we're basically equipped like we've been in the zone for around 20 in-game hours in Anomaly. It seems to be possible to just fight the mercenaries that stopped us, but we take the diplomatic approach. We try to talk our way out of the situation by saying that we're a lost soldier from a crashed chopper, which the mercenaries are not really ready to believe since they monitor all nearby frequencies. So I guess we do decide for the diplomatic approach. Long-time enjoyers of this channel know I kinda have a soft spot for mercenaries. They lead us to their commander, Satrap, who's eager to verify if we're really just a lost soldier, like we told his men, Well, hello, Wanderer. So who is standing in front of me, a lost soldier or a wandering ragamuffin? What is the average number of men in a motorized rifle company in the army? I'm waiting for an answer. 130 to 150 soldiers. Well, correct. I was told that you were traveling with a group of scientists, so answer a couple of more questions so we can be sure of that. After that little interrogation, he offers us an interesting proposition. Apparently, the mercenaries have a box stashed in Limansk, not too far from here. But there's a bit of an issue. A pseudo dog is roaming the area. I will offer you a deal. Our guys dropped a crate of food near the camp, right into a concentration of anomalies. There's also a pseudo dog nearby. We really need that crate. You will get it for us, and we will let you go. But if you try to run away in the wrong direction, without the box, we will quickly send you to the afterlife. Well, with that agreed, I'm sure your instinct for self-preservation will kick in. Take this pistol and a mag, it should be enough. I repeat, if you try to run away, we will shoot you. Do you understand? Understood. The box and the pseudo dog are nearby. We take care of the pseudo dog, doing our best to handle the situation with a bit of grace. When we return, Satrap doesn't seem too impressed. He basically tells us to fuck off, doesn't return our rifle, and casually mentions he'll call us if he needs anything. Not exactly the warm welcome we were hoping for, but it's a start. Sort of. So off we go to the Red Forest. Naturally, the infuriating minefield in Limansk is still in place, but after a bit of trial and error we managed to reach the tunnel. Well, now we get the idea why these stalkers on the other side of the bridge keep the actual bridge raised. It's a smart move, considering Limansk's reputation as one of the nastiest places in the zone, but that leaves us with another problem. How to cross the river and actually enter the Red Forest. After fumbling around for a while, we finally find a tunnel that connects the two areas. As we step through, we're immediately greeted by one of the most terrifying sights we've ever seen in the zone. This has to be what Duty is always talking about, those deadly mutants. They do bite though. The first stalkers we run into are actually from Duty, which is a bit of a surprise. Looks like in this alternate universe, Duty is actually doing something for once. We ask them about the scientists, and they point us in the direction of the forester, who might know more about Kalancha. And here we go, baby. On the way there, we stumble upon some dead loners. Classic stalker behavior. They clearly followed the unwritten rule of being completely useless when up against anything tougher than a rat. But hey, we hit the jackpot, an almost perfect Mossberg shotgun and a half-broken AK. I swear, my brain must be fried from all the loot progression in Anomaly, Gamma and Dead Air, because just seeing those weapons gave me a pure dopamine hit. We're officially in the late game now, I can feel it. You see, the progression in Wind of Time is somewhere in between the vanilla games and all the mods that took their basic inspiration on gear progression from Misery. Gear is not really that hard to get, and the unthinkable things happen. Artifacts are useful, can spawn in stashes, weapons and armor can actually be found or received as rewards, and in this regard Wind of Time is much closer to the vanilla games. It's also more of a story mod, with its strongest moments being actual missions and quest design, and not the free-play survival experience upon which mods like Anomaly or Gamma built their basic gameplay. On our way to the Forester, we bump into another group of stalkers. Turns out their friends ventured into a nearby mine, and they haven't heard from them in a while. Naturally, we are tasked with checking it out. We arrive at the mine only to find the entrance to be locked. There's actually no reason why they would lock themselves inside the mine. More likely, someone went out and locked it behind them. I guess it's time to look for clues. As expected, we eventually find a stalker holed up in a nearby crawl space, clutching the key. It seems like a controller is on the loose in the mine, and the guy, who is appropriately named Boot, decided to leg it. Probably a smart choice, to be honest. The controller we find inside the mine, along with his zombified minions, could have been a real problem. Well, could have been if he didn't have that shotgun. With the right positioning, it was just a matter of corner camping and landing a few good shots. However, this side mission, while not the most exciting or memorable Wind of Time has to offer, gives us a glimpse into the mod maker's vision. Wind of Time is filled with many side missions, and most of them are multi-stage, handcrafted experiences. This stands in stark contrast to the more modern approach in Stalker modding, which often rely on randomized or procedural content. Next up, the local Stalker mechanic asked us to head back into the mine and gather radio parts to repair his receiver. While we're there, we find something unexpected: parts to repair the broken bridge mechanism. Now, from what I understand, there's no actual need to repair the bridge. You can always use the tunnel you came through to reach Lumansk. But here's the rewarding part. By offering the player the option to repair the bridge indirectly, the mod pushes you in a specific direction with one clear objective. In return for your curiosity, you are rewarded with something that might not be essential but certainly feels valuable. After this mission, we also get word that another Stalker, Fanatic, is heading this way and will contact us soon. Apparently he was impressed when he heard we took out the controller. To be honest, I'm already liking the direction this mod is taking. After talking with Forrester and doing a few missions for him, we're introduced to the peculiarities of the Red Forest. While we were looking for the missing scientists we're trying to contact, we find out that the Red Forest is full of spatial anomalies that mostly only activate at night. These anomalies just randomly teleport you to another part of the forest. The Stalkers first realized that mutants were disappearing, but later on more and more Stalkers went missing as well. In the meantime, the message arrives as well. Fanatic wants to see us. He's currently in the mines that we cleared. One of their Stalker friends, Weasel, has gone missing. We were passing through the forest from Yantar, moving towards the army warehouses. It was already dark in the night when we walked through the forest. We passed through the forest like nothing happened, but when we arrived, we noticed that there is a person missing. No one understands how he could have wandered off. We were all following each other. His name is Weasel. Have you seen him? No, I have not. Where could he go? No idea. He took a big dose of radiation in Yantar. Later on, he was delirious. We figured it was time to get to a safe place and get him some anti-rad pills, but he just disappeared. We sent one of our guys to look for him, but he did not return. Something's not right. Have you tried searching the forest in the morning? Sure. We all moved together, watched one another. There were no traces. We only ran into bloodsuckers. But you know what is most interesting? We actually found footprints in the mud. We followed them, and the trail just cut off. He disappeared without a trace. I don't understand. And where did the second guy go to? Okay, I'll try to find him. We go back to the Forester. He might have some information about the missing Stalker. Forrester suspects that Weasel might have fallen victim to one of those portal anomalies, as he calls them. Forrester also informs us that there is a ghost of the lost Stalker who's been spotted near an electric anomaly. Apparently, every night, Stalkers see him wandering around that area. We're advised to try to talk to him. When we find a ghost, he's surprisingly talkative for, well, a ghost. He explains that his body is stuck on the other side of reality, as he says, and that we need to get a specific drug from Professor Sakharov, the scientist in Yantar, to help free him. Fast forward a few hours, after running a few errands for Sakharov and actually getting our hands on the drug, we return to the Red Forest and the anomaly. With very little explanation on how or why this will work, we're told to take the drug at the spot where we met the ghost. We follow the instructions, take the drug, and then everything goes black. We wake up starving and very thirsty. In what appears to be some kind of isolated valley, there's no obvious way out. The place seems peaceful, almost too peaceful, but there's not much going on. As we start to explore, we come across a lone zombified Stalker wandering the area. After putting a bullet through his head, it hits us. This is the body of the ghost Stalker. We've just freed him from his state of limbo. But now, the bigger question remains, how do we get out of here? In another clever twist of mission design, we find Weasel in a nearby cave. Somehow, he ended up here too. This is where Fanatic's mission and Forrester's Ghost Stalker quest cleverly intertwine. Weasel tells us that another Stalker has been here as well, and he believed that the stones scattered around the valley hold the key to finding the way out. We start investigating the area with our scanner. After some time, we discover a rare artifact, a compass. It's said to help locate gaps in anomaly fields and can guide you through even the most dangerous parts of the zone. With the compass now secured to our belt, we're able to locate a hidden anomaly that seems to be the way out. Together with Weasel, we step through the portal, only to end up right back in the mine, along with him. Fanatic is pleased, and just like that, the mystery is solved. I really appreciate missions like this one. They evoke a more mysterious, Tarkovsky-like vision of the zone, contrasting it sharply with the more typical horror arcs involving brainwashing, the monolith, and death squads. In this way, Wind of Time leans much more into the spirit of Roadside Picnic, and no pun intended, it definitely channels the Twilight Zone vibe. The zone here is portrayed as a labyrinth of mysteries, an ever-changing landscape where unexplainable phenomena trap stalkers. It's an area where rational understanding falls short, and new ways of thinking and exploring this strange reality are essential for survival. The Red Forest in Wind of Time is a prime example of these design choices and the unique vision the mod brings to life. Imagine seeing this guy in a bar. He looks trustworthy and just like the guy you want to take a mission from, right? Especially if the guy is called Snitch as well. He has his way with words. There is a stalker at the army warehouses. He betrayed a very good man. Kill him, you will be rewarded. Do not ask any questions. The man in question is Diodorus, a local mutant hunter who's been spending a lot of time around the army warehouses. When we meet him, we actually find out he has a few missions for us too. We inform him that he's on the hit list, and he's unsurprisingly thankful. He gives us an artifact, one he might have borrowed, to pass along to Snitch to settle things. But we have a different plan. I'm going to do all the missions Diodorus can give us, then I'm going to keep the artifact he gave us for myself, and finally, I'm going to take him out and cash in with Snitch. You know what they say, modern problems call for modern solutions? However, my plan falls apart as soon as I finish his first mission, which is to take out some mutant dogs. Turns out, Theodorus bailed, quite logically since he is actively being hunted. But I'm not too lazy to finish what I started, so I reload and track Theodorus down again. The missions he gives actually involve a series of mutant hunts around the army warehouses. The first task is to shoot some nearby boars, then it's on to killing a pack of dogs. After that we're supposed to head to the Bloodsucker village, and finally we're tasked with taking down two chimeras that have been spotted in the area. The Bloodsuckers are probably the worst part. There's a lot of them, and for some reason I wasn't able to glitch them like I usually would. Later on, I'd learned that certain mutants can climb ladders, which feels like a fuck you from the mod maker, something I appreciate in this case. On the other hand, the chimeras, as dangerous as they are, remove the option of just standing on something to keep safe, which usually works with other mutants. The chimera will just jump at you and tear you to shreds. The best approach seems to be hiding behind an obstacle, like a sandbag wall, and baiting the chimera to jump, making it bump into the obstacle in front of you and glitch around for a bit, allowing you to pump it full of buckshot. In any case, there's always the hidden solution I implemented while I played Road to North, which I'd love to see as a comeback. Yeah, I'm looking for a place to stay for a while in a new job. I need to be sure I can trust you before I can send you on a real mission. What is your name? My name is Maxim Pipesmoker. I've been told the ship is a popular place among stalkers, so I decided Skadops could be the right place to find a job. You're damn right about that. Even in its current state, the Skadops protects us well against the zone. Against the zone, its dangers. You're missing an end. You will have to show me what you are made of before I will send you on a mission. Join our hunter Gonta tonight. He'd like someone to join him while hunting a chimera. After that we'll talk. Make sure to meet all officers if you need a new rifle. Well. I'm gonna get this pass. You guys told me, baseball bat. I'm gonna baseball bat the chimera. There's no way I'm gonna do anything else. Don't even try to talk me out of it. Where's that chimera you talked about, Beard? Get it here. Holy shit. Mountain Blade Stalker. Stalker of Might and Magic. Gonna drug myself up and beat that Chimera up. In a few moments, we will be running towards its hunting ground at the ranger station. Listen very carefully and stay close. Keep your weapon ready. Blah blah. Okay, let's lead the way. That's a bloodsucker to the right there. Attack the dude. Get wrecked, okay? Get wrecked.
Можно передохнуть маленько.
Ha. Ha. The agile stalker. Let me bonk you, bro. Get bonked. Get bonked! I said get bonked! Let's get bonked. Get bonked! Yeah, that was a lot of damage actually. Do it. Do it. Do it. Ha! How did I do? Do I really need to tell you? You failed at being the bait and killing the Chimera. I'm glad you didn't run away and leave me to die, but we won't ask you again to do anything for us. Why? I fucking did it, dude. What the fuck? There's the bloodsucker. To be quite honest, the missions aren't that interesting, but the thing that keeps me hooked is that you can approach the whole Diodorus situation from multiple angles and see how you want to resolve it, especially when you take the path that leads to maximizing financial gains. You might have noticed that our loadout has changed as well. We still have that Spaz 12, though I plan on swapping it out for a Saiga soon. The Abakan, however, is here to stay. Its 2-bullet one-shot mode is really cool when it works, and when you don't have to maintain the weapon, which seems to be a nightmare in real life.
And see how this Kami space magic actually works.
I decided to take a Siva suit, which I intend to fully upgrade, equip with quality artifacts, and then eventually swap out for an exoskeleton once I have enough cash. In any case, we wrap up the missions for Diodorus, and now it's time for the final chapter of the hunt. He's surrounded by screws, so we lob a grenade and take out the survivors. Mission complete, though once again the payout is laughable. We get a measly 1,500 rubles for the assassination. Honestly, Snitch is the only one who pays worse than Voronin in the zone, and we'll get a taste of that soon enough. However, despite the simple nature of the missions, I'm glad the mod maker kept things open-ended. The RPG-like approach with multiple solutions and multiple ways of handling problems allows us to be as creative and as much of an asshole as we actually want to be.
Deadly anomalies, dangerous mutants, anarchists, and bandits. None of them will stop duty on its triumphant march towards saving the planet.
Has Duty ever actually done anything? Seriously, even in Stalker 2 they're still just hanging around the cement factory like a bunch of outcasts, with a permadrunk officer stumbling around the zone talking about the glory days. But in this version of Stalker lore and headcanon, Duty actually seems to be right. At least when it comes to their vision of the zone. Why? Well, the zone did expand and wreaked havoc all the way to Minsk, so I guess the idea of destroying the zone wasn't so bad after all. In any case, our military man, Demidov, at least in my head, is more of a duty enthusiast than a freedom supporter. So when General Voronin calls for a stalker willing to take on an important mission, it fits right in with our goal in the zone. Apparently, a detachment of duty veterans led by a dude named Skeleton entered X-17. They made a stop in the small village next to the army warehouses, which proved to be a very bad idea since they all ended up dead. However, Skeleton was able to send an SOS signal to the duty base. The first weird thing is, at least according to Voronin, that they got their asses kicked so badly since it was supposed to be a veteran squad. And of course, there's the fact that the murder scene is right next to the Freedom base, and we all know what that implies. Now it seems that there is some shaky truce in Wind of Time between Duty and Freedom, and they're not really openly shooting each other, but there seems to be some kind of mutual understanding and avoidance. In any case, Voronin wants to send somebody new, not one of his guys, so that's where we come in. The murder scene was already investigated by a dude that Voronin sent, so we're to meet up with him, see what we can gather, and continue on to the Freedom base and see what we can learn there. Upon entering the army warehouses, we're immediately prompted to head to the Freedom base. There's a massive mutant assault on the way, and to make matters worse, a blowout hits just as we arrive. After we heroically fend off the attack and take some time to familiarize ourselves with the base, we actually head on to the crime scene. We meet Helmet there, the dude who Voronin sent, who's pretty pissed off about his situation. He's sitting alone in a shed surrounded by duty corpses and with a Freedom sniper keeping him in sight. I'm not entirely sure why he's so upset, but it's clear this isn't a great place to be. Helmet tells us that he has no leads at all. The SOS signal from Skeleton mentioned military uniforms, but to me, the Freedom uniforms look military enough with their German camo. Still, Helmet says that an attack from the military is possible as well. As for why a duty squad would be hanging around the Freedom base, Helmet suggests they might have been planning an attack on a Freedom group, despite the truce. He then suggests our best bet would be to talk to the Freedom sniper in the tower. This guy had a clear view of the area, and if anyone saw something, it was him. In the meantime, while heading back to Rostock to take care of some minor business, we're ambushed by a gang of dwarf suicide bombers. Yeah, things are getting weird in the Weird East. I know, they're called cuddlicks and they were cut from games for a good reason. They just look ridiculous, and honestly, I never liked them as mutants. They don't fit in with the rest of the zone. After dealing with that, we finally return to the army warehouses, only to be greeted by something totally unexpected. A semblance of peace and harmony. There we find a duty squad dry humping Screw, who somehow manages to keep his cool like a saint. We decide to leave them to it. We make our way to the Freedom Tower to talk to the sniper. Unfortunately, Demidov's luck is as bad as ever. The sniper wasn't on duty on that night, no pun intended, and the guy who was on shift just got up and left, abandoning his post. It's a bit nonsensical, but we decide to take the direct route and speak to the man in charge, Lukáš. I guess Demidov's undercover status isn't that important after all. As expected, the conversation goes downhill right from the start. Lukáš immediately points out that duty should be able to handle their own problems. When we insist that the documents involved are important for everyone, Lukáš reluctantly admits that they did witness the shootout. But since Freedom doesn't care for either side, they just watched it unfold from the sidelines. Apparently a few Freedom members went to loot the bodies afterwards, which, according to Lukáš, is basically a part of their unwritten code. I guess along with the weird obsession with bloodsuckers. In any case, good old Lukáš gives us some good advice. Talk to every Freedomer ever in the zone and you're bound to find out something. That's what he literally says, basically telling us to fuck off. We update Helmet on the situation, sharing our suspicion that Freedom is hiding something. Then again, it's not like they need a solid reason to keep things under wraps from duty. Apparently there's a drunkard in the Freedom base known for talking too much and showing off. So naturally we're tasked with finding him, getting him as hammered as possible and squeezing any useful information out of him. Enter Moonshine, the man whose name practically guarantees success. After enough vodka to fill a small lake, Moonshine finally starts spilling the beans. Turns out Freedom has the body of one of the attackers. A merc. His PDA is still in their armory, waiting for us to get our hands on it. Helmet has a plan which is kind of idiotic, but we've got to roll with it. He hands us a Freedom armor and tells us to infiltrate the base, claiming we're the new guy on guard duty in front of the armory. Naturally, I do a hard save. Gotta keep that Freedom rep intact, especially since I've been giving tools to Screw. We slip past the guards, make our way into the main building and manage to convince one of the Freedom guys to hand over the key to the armory. And there it is, the PDA, sitting right where we need it. We snatch it up and start looting the place, grabbing anything that's not nailed down. But of course, things are never meant to go this smoothly. Just as we're about to leave, we're intercepted by Max. Yes, the same guy we met earlier for a side mission. He confronts us, takes the PDA and tells us to get lost. Apparently he's got a bone to pick with Lukáš and wants to make clear that he's not as bloodthirsty as the head honcho of Freedom. But he gives us a warning. If he sees us near the armor again, we're getting a bullet in the head. We get a message from Voronin urging us to haul ass to Rostock for some crucial information. Upon arriving, the general briefs us on what's been uncovered. The mercs were behind the attack and they're hiding out in an abandoned part of the factory. Our task is to lead an assault and we're given the option to go in alone or with 2 squads from Beauty. I opt out to go alone. Not because I'm channeling any Rambo fantasies, but because I've got a gut feeling that there might be a chance to cozy up with the mercs. But on arrival, things immediately turn sour. We're immediately in a massive firefight. I start taking out mercs one by one with my Abakan, but just as I think I found a good spot to lay low and snipe, I get blindsided by a fucking helicopter. It even has a health bar. This is starting to feel like Dark Souls. I managed to find a decent spot and after some tense moments, take the helicopter down. We grab anything we can from the mercs along with the documents and head back to Rostock, expecting some well-earned praise. Voronin congratulates us on a job well done, but when it comes to the reward, well, 3,000 rubles and an AS Val? Really? Guess it's true what they say, duty really does suck. Great mission, terrible payout. Let's hope Demidov is an idealist. There's a traitor in Freedom. At least that's what Lukáš tells us, tasking us with following a guy named Stepan. Stepan is apparently ratting out Freedom to somebody. We do our best to keep him inside, but he's quick, and before we know it, he vanishes into the Red Forest. We follow, hoping to catch up and gather more intel, but then, bam, a psi storm hits. If you don't want your brain scrambled, then you better find cover fast. To be honest, I've always enjoyed these moments of tension, the little breaks in the action that add immersive flavor to the zone. But in mods like this, I'm less fond of them, especially when I'm in the middle of a mission. It's always a bit frustrating to be forced to wait. Eventually, the storm passes, and according to our PDA, Stepan is now at the duty checkpoint near the bridge. But when we get there, we find Stepan dead. We find his PDA too, but it's locked with a note indicating that only a skilled technician might be able to decrypt its content. You know what the cool thing is about mods like this? Nobody literally knows anything. It's uncharted territory. It's like you're the Columbus approaching new undiscovered shores of pure gold and jank. Now, of course there are plenty of people that didn't play the native version of the mod, in the same way I did not, and that have still beaten it. There are several Let's Plays of it on YouTube, but looking up information is not easy if you don't speak Russian, and I'm certainly not in the mood to watch entire playthroughs just to see how something might go. Apparently, and I'm really saying apparently, since I've gathered more information on this by reading up on the mod itself here and there than by playing it, there is a whole questline centering on the leadership crisis in Freedom. In my playthrough, Max, one of the protagonists of this split, only appeared 3 times. Once where he gave us a side mission to get something from a crazy stalker who turned out to be a zombie. The second time Max appeared was when we were spying for duty, and we'll get to the third time soon. But in any case, I never experienced the full Freedom split questline. Curious about it, I decided to dig deeper, which meant heading straight into X-Files territory. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what went wrong and what was supposed to happen. My best guess is that Stepan, in his infinite wisdom, decided to stand right in the middle of a psi storm and, well, he just died there. Looting his PDA didn't progress the mission, as the quest marker stubbornly stayed on his corpse forever. None of the technicians I talked to could do anything with the PDA, and Lukáš didn't want it either. It wasn't until after I finished the mod that I realized I missed the entire Freedom Split questline and the Dead City area. How? I have no idea. My theory is that the Stepan mission completely broke the possibility of ever getting to the Dead City. I tried to look for answers, but with little success. I did find one video where Stepan actually got away. Is he supposed to get away? And Lukasz gave the player a follow-up mission, but in my case I was stuck, with no way to move forward. I thought maybe I'd find a technician who could decrypt Stepan's PDA. Spoiler alert, I did not. Such is life when you're playing Stalker mods. Speaking of technicians, it seems there's a limited supply of tools in the zone, and they're hand-placed in various locations. You can get lucky and find some, but most are hand-placed. After talking to Screw, the Freedom mechanic, we learned that we can actually order gear to him. Sure enough, he offers an exoskeleton for 150,000 rubles. Now, you know what that means, extreme measures to scrape together that kind of cash. One way I've found to do this is by striking a deal with a very trustworthy looking bandit at the bar. He sells information, and for the right price he'll reveal the locations of tools scattered around the zone. So we pay him a ridiculous amount of rubles for the information, he tells us where to find the tools, and of course I reload, head to the spot and grab the tools. Not my proudest moment, but hey, you do what you have to do. Have you ever gotten a message from a guy asking you to meet him in an abandoned tunnel at night? Who hasn't, right? But you gotta admit, that's weird, even by the zone standards. And especially if the dude is a freedomer as well. Last time I met some guy in a game like this, I ended up getting robbed right in front of the old camp in Gothic 1. So yeah, I've got trust issues since then. Based on my experience, this could either be a robbery or a romantic encounter. But hey, we decide to take the offer. What's the worst that could happen? So we meet Jack, the Stalker, in a tunnel near the Freedom Base, and the guy gives us one of the most absurd proposals ever given by a human being. Apparently there has been a string of robberies at night, always targeting lone stalkers in areas where the Freedom snipers can't really see. Sounds like a trap, doesn't it? So Jack comes up with this brilliant idea. We're supposed to act as bait. The plan is to stroll down the road where the robberies have been happening, right around midnight, and of course alone. The bandits are supposed to jump us, and then, just at the right moment, Jack and his crew will leap out from the bushes and together will take out the robbers once and for all. We agree. Naturally, I mean, nothing could sound more sensible at this point, right? So as expected and planned, we run into a squad of bandits. They state that they're really hopeful we have some good equipment and money since the last stalkers they took out were kinda poor. In any case, we get insta-gipped a few times, which forces me to put the difficulty down from master for the first time, since I literally have no time to react or cover to move to. We shoot the bandits, and of course, Jack and his buddies are nowhere to be seen. We were set up once more. I want to address something that I call the institution of bullying in games. Older games, particularly those from Eastern Europe, are known for this kind of harsh treatment. While Gothic isn't really Eastern European, it's certainly no stranger to this approach. In games like this, NPCs treat you like crap. They scam you, they beat you up, they rob you, they take your money. It's part of what makes them stand out. The concept of starting from rock bottom breaks away from the usual chosen hero trope. In Gothic, sure, you eventually do become the hero, but you're thrown into a world where you're treated like nothing at first. This kind of design isn't exclusive to older games though. More recent titles like Kenshi and Underrail continue this trend. Bit of Time follows suit, and we'll see more of this as we go. I've always been a fan of this kind of mission design because it adds new dynamics to what could otherwise be stale quest structures. It keeps things fresh and unpredictable. Most importantly, it keeps you on your toes. The game makes it clear that not every offer you get is in your best interest, and that adds a whole new layer of tension and strategy to the gameplay. We head back to the army warehouses looking to find Jack and demand an explanation for why he wasn't where he said he would be. On the bridge, we run into one of the Freedom Guards. According to him, Jack had slipped off the bridge. Honestly, the translation is a bit unclear about what actually happened here. We tell the Freedom Guard that we were set up and he fills us in. Turns out, Jack has been running this scam for a while. He even has a stash nearby where he kept some of the stolen goods. Curious to see what Jack left behind, we check out the stash. The loot isn't the greatest, but it's still decent. Among the items we find a Scar rifle and a Sunrise suit. Not exactly jackpot level, but it'll do for now. So what's the moral of this short story? Bring back bullying in games. Nowadays, there's very little incentive to engage with a game beyond grinding crit like an MMO. You just take every mission without thinking, following quest markers blindly, and expect that the only thing that will happen is that you will benefit in the end. That's boring, and that's why this approach that Wind of Time takes stands out. The mod is unapologetically big on bullying, and I respect it for that. During my playthrough, I had all my money taken from me twice, and I'll get into these moments later. It's frustrating, sure, and I have mixed feelings about it, but it teaches you something important. Not everything in the game is going to go your way, and sometimes you lose out even if you do nothing wrong. A lesson that can be applied to real life as well. So in any case, these 2 times where I lost my cash, one of those was unavoidable, but the other, I got scammed by a stalker, kind of like receiving one of those sketchy calls from an Indian call center. It's a hard lesson, but it's real. So the question is, can games teach life lessons? Older ones sure could. They reminded us that not everyone is fair, not everyone has your best interest in heart, and most importantly, the world doesn't revolve around you. I'd argue that these are lessons that are sorely needed nowadays. Demidov must really seem like the resident idiot when he's in any bar around the zone, as he always gets approached with the most scammy offers ever. In the bar in Rostock, a stalker approaches us and offers us info on a stash with some great loot. He'll give us the location for only 5,000 rubles. It's not really that expensive, but I mostly buy it for the fuck it, let's see what happens this time reason. Fully expecting to get scammed out of my 5,000 rubles. Find some irradiated sausage in the stash and never see the guy that we bought the info from again in our lives. I'm okay with that. YOLO. The stash is nearby in the army warehouses next to the downed helicopter. The stalker is even kind enough to warn us against the dogs that are apparently around the stash. There's been a simple problem I've been facing throughout most of my Wind of Time playthrough. I'm an unfixable hoarder, and carry weight is always a problem for me. I've been upgrading my Siva suit and strapping artifacts to it that mostly increase the amount of stuff that I can carry, which has been working well, along with the fact that Hercules, the medication that gives you a temporary boost to carry weight, is rather cheap in this mod. So I've been mostly looking for artifacts that can boost that specific problem and upgrading my gear in a way to weight less and to have as much space as possible for artifacts. Moving on to the army warehouses, we find a helicopter. There's no dogs though, since we killed those off working for Diodorus, may God rest his soul. Now, I seriously expected to find nothing, to get blown up by a rigged stash, to get ambushed by a bandit death squad. I expected everything, except finding an artifact that gives you plus 30 kilograms of carry weight. Holy fuck, for once the Stalker did not lie. I guess the dopamine hit must have been massive. I do not have enough space on my Siva to put the artifact to use immediately, so I fiddle around in my inventory a bit and then lights out. We wake up naked in the Bloodsucker village. Turns out a stalker named Claw found us and dragged us here. He explains the scam as he has been a victim as well. The artifact releases a gas that knocks you out, the dudes move in, take all your stuff and money, and then they leave. Now Claw here has followed them for a while and knows where they are holed up. He proposes that we attack them together and get revenge, along with our stuff. We're not really equipped to fight, but Claw gives us a sawn-off and some ammo. It'll have to do. The bandits are holed up in Yantar. Claw proposes a two-pronged attack. He'll move through the pipes and surprise them, while we use the high ground. Not really an easy fight when we only have a sawn-off, but after disposing of the dudes we actually find our stuff. However, our cash is gone. Now I presume that this is a deliberate choice, since lootable money was always an option in several mods, where it just spawns like an item you can pick up. Now as far as I see it, the mod author wanted to increase the difficulty of the mod without actually revamping the whole progression system, but adding bumps like these to set you back. I've lost around 50,000 rubles, which I couldn't get back. The bandits do have some high-end rifles with scopes that sell well. Always remove scopes in this mod as they sell for a lot of cash. So after selling their gear, we're back to around 20k, but I've seen people complain that they lost more than 100k in this mission. Honestly, it's a cool mission and another instance of the institution of bullying I've been talking about, while also being a way to reset your progress slightly in a game where progress is inherently tied to money and gear progression only. It's also the first of the 2 times where I got all my money taken from me. At least, this one was avoidable. Lab diving is an integral part of any Stalker experience, and for one reason or another, the mods always find an explanation on why you need to go down into what basically are abandoned tunnels full of anomalies and layers of mutants to find something. Bit of Time is no different, although it presents the labs quite differently. The first lab we visit is actually the Miracle Machine in Yantar, which is not really in line with tradition as it would be to visit Agroprom Underground first. Now the first thing I liked about this approach is that the sequence in which you usually do labs are broken up and mixed up. Sakharov now gives you the Psi helmet to generally deal with Psi emissions in the area. The area up around the Miracle Machine is very dangerous. Also, here's a pro tip. Don't ask him for the mission to disable the Miracle Machine if you don't plan on doing it immediately. I actually did, and the sequence is a bit different. Zakharov will ask you to place plastic explosives in the facility, and you can't really drop the items once they're in your inventory or place them in your stash. So you will be hauling around 3 kilograms of explosives if you don't plan on disabling the lab immediately. It always has been kinda nonsensical that Strelok basically flipped the switch and moved on without disabling the facility. In Wind of Time, someone came back and basically only flipped it back on. So we're going in with C4 now, which I found to be a neat, loreful touch that doesn't really make difference to the sequence you'll experience in the lab itself. The lab functions the same, it's the same sequence of events with moving up the ramps, and now instead of flipping switches you are setting C4 in the same places. You fight the controller, hop into the pipes, hear an explosion and get out. If I remember correctly, and I think I do, usually you'd have to fight a pseudo-giant in the pipes. He's missing here for some reason. So the lab is basically unchanged, except for the fact that we found the highest tier of tools down here, which later allows me to maximally upgrade my weapons and Siva. However, the coolest and most innovative lab was the one below Rostock. I'll get back to the revamped layout of Rostock and other areas of the zone later, but the information you need to have here is that there is what basically amounts to a scientist's lab below Rostock, which is important for the main mission, as well as for several side missions which you may want to do. One of these is to investigate a deserted lab below Rostock, X-19. Apparently there are some very valuable documents the scientists would like to get their hands on. First off, this is a side mission. You don't have to do this one and it seems to serve no greater purpose than to give you something to do. Secondly, it's the coolest lab in the mod, so you would be seriously missing out if you decided to skip it. Now, one of the benefits of having your full playthrough recorded is the ability to see how much time you've spent to complete a certain section. I've spent more than an hour in this lab, and that's quite much when you think about it. Especially since by this point I have an almost fully upgraded Siva along with a Saiga and an Abakan. The lab seems like an amalgamation of several labs you've seen throughout the games. You're mostly dealing with poltergeists and controllers here, along with psi activity and anomalies that can still somehow one-shot me in a Siva. Exploring the several levels of this lab almost makes me feel like I'm playing Daggerfall. It's nowhere as confusing as the randomly generated dungeons you get there, but some ways forward are unclear. There is a single area that seems to lead forward, but once you try to pass, you get teleported back. So Tarkovsky-like zone shenanigans are back on the menu. Along the way we meet the ghost of a Stalker, or is it an illusion? He seems to appear and disappear in random intervals. After fighting what amounts to 3 poltergeists in a controller in the deeper levels, we find some of the documents deeper down, but on ascending up we find one of those areas where Stalkers are brainwashed for the Stalker program, some additional documentation and another controller lying in wait. The problem by now is that I'm running out of prime mutant remover, that is buckshot for my Saiga, and I don't feel confident in a lab in anything less than 50 shells. After picking up the last documents, we're teleported to another part of the lab. The ghostly Stalker is in front of us. Obviously, he wants us to follow him, and we do. We are very much under the influence of something, probably hard scripted psi effects, although my psi resistance is very high with Siva and the psi block I'm taking. We have an effect much similar to the one seen in Stalker 2 in the Poppy Fields anomaly, only we're not on a hard timer to fall asleep. We follow the Stalker. He seems to be phasing in and out of reality, if you could really call this reality, and he is clearly leading us somewhere. I have a weird and bad feeling about this since we keep shifting to areas full of corpses, with the Stalker obviously waiting for us to follow him. The mod author decides to show us some of his ideas of humor. In this desolate, deadly, and hard to reach area, the ghostly Stalker shows us his stash. What could be inside? Unique artifacts, weapons, and exoskeleton? No, it's full of vodka. A snork ambush later, and I think I realized what happened here. The apparition led us to the most deadly, anomaly-infested, irradiated, and psi-active part of the lab and left us to die. I decide to do the illogical thing and move right through the most massive anomaly fields, finding my way forward. There is a ladder here, moving up, but moving close to it reveals both a fire and vortex anomaly. We're not getting through here. We move down further through this corridor, and at the end we find our reward. A stack of scientific and army mech kits along with a few energy drinks. This is hardly a reward, but a possibility to survive the trek back. We have to try to follow our own footsteps, get back into the original part of the laboratory before we were ported here, and ascend. The tunnels are full of anomalies, and finally our way back is blocked by a Sauda giant. Luckily I have some rifle grenades, the giant falls, and we move on. The way back is a real maze. However, this seems familiar. I reached the point where the game didn't let me through on the way down, where I was getting teleported back. It makes sense. This whole sequence we went through would make no sense if I could access this remote area first. Now I know why you did what you did, dear mod maker. We make our way back, ascending up all the way to the entrance. However, the ghost is there. Let's see what he has to say. And a final fuck you from the mod. The game crashes if you try to talk to the ghost. And I read some of the comments on the ModDB page. This seems to happen to many people, if not for everyone. Who was the ghost? What did he have to say? Yeah, but I'm invested now, so I watched some Let's Plays. In one, the ghost dude straight up was not waiting at the exit. In the other, I couldn't see the ghost either. What the fuck did I just play? I even tried to watch some Russian streams and the one I saw didn't do the mission at all. What happened? What was supposed to happen? Well, if you know, please tell me in the comments. Fast forward to Agroprom. Some of the mod's greatest mysteries are bound to a specific area here, and it's not the underground. We'll get back to that later. In any case, we're led here to look for the guide, who apparently went into the Agroprom underground. I've been more careful with scammy offers, and by the time we're supposed to go down into the underground, we're fully decked out with an upgraded Siva, 5 good artifacts, and a fully enhanced and scoped Saiga, along with an Abakan with all possible upgrades. I've also ordered an exoskeleton of Screw, paid 40,000 rubles in front, with 110k rubles being left to pay once the goods are here. So we're trying to gather as much money as possible. I feel confident, however, since I have around 50k already while going down to Agroprom. One small tangent here. I hate how these machine translations, or whoever is at fault here, typically translate nicknames or names of stalkers in several ways during different conversations. It makes me feel like I'm reading Dostoevsky and trying to grasp all the fucking names, surnames, and patronyms that are scattered throughout the book, trying to get who the fuck he's talking about. For example, the guide is referred to as guide, pilot, and conductor, which is already great. I've also seen Claw being called Talon in another conversation. That sometimes makes it very hard to follow along, and I'm trying to play Stalker, not solve a contradictory puzzle of nickname translations. However that may be, Agroprom is another one of those labs that haven't changed much. Except for one unique twist. We find the guide's body and PDA down here, leading us to Strelok's old hideout. Going in there we find several documents which should help us move on with our mission. However, once we try to crawl out of the pipe, well, we basically get blown up. And once again we wake up, this time in the Agroprom military base. A friendly officer informs Demidov that he's been very helpful in leading the military to crucial information. As a thank you, they will take our gear, artifacts and cash and dump us in a nearby anomaly field to die. Classy. We find ourselves in the buzzing anomaly field. Our cash is gone, once again, and our artifacts as well. However, we have our gear. The thing is, by this point I've cleared out the military from the base anyway, and I intend to just move back into the base and get my stuff. However, there is no mission marker, which is slightly worrying. I scour the main building looking through all the stashes. I don't want to lose my valuable artifacts that are an integral part of my loadout by now. I get slightly pissed off now, no lies, and I thought to myself I'll just reload, put the artifacts in my inventory or leave them somewhere for later. However, upon reloading I realized by looking up at the minimap that the interrogation sequence is not taking place in the main building, but in one of the side buildings. Worth a try. I head back into the base, go into the building and really, my artifacts are there. But yet again, the cache is gone. Which is an especially painful financial setback since I've just ordered an EXO off Screw. As for the radar and the brain scorcher, they don't exactly exist in the form we're used to.
The sickness has been cut out!
The first mistake I made is that I've assumed that it would be a two-way trip. I still had not bought my EXO and I thought getting into radar and dealing with some monolith would improve my finances. Luckily, I've decided to take most of my ammo and all the meds I had from my stash. I was not ready to risk anything since the radar lab was always my least favorite. Yeah, I never actually liked it. The time-limited sequence, the corridor shootouts with Monolith, it always destroyed a lot of the atmosphere the game was creating in other ways. Stalker games always had that problem of moving out of their own way, out of the way of the atmosphere they built all game. Provide late game challenge which mostly gets dished out in late game shootouts against human enemies, be it Monolith or military. Moving up to the barrier that's being held by Freedomers, we're informed that there is an incoming Monolith assault on the position. However, it turns out that the Monolithians are unarmed. Turns out that these Monolithians broke free from the influence of the Brain Scorcher because the Brain Scorcher was disabled by a military assault on the radar facility. Well, I guess we know who the military can thank for that. Apparently Max and a team of Freedomers are already exploring the area. Upon moving up the road in the radar, we're starting to face heavy resistance from military patrols. And as if that wasn't bad enough, we get information that there's a huge blowout coming. We have a few minutes to find shelter and move up. And as if that wasn't bad enough as well, Max's squad is pinned by the military, so we have to rescue them as well. Several sprints through zombies with a strong military presence in one of the checkpoints later, we reach Max and his boys. He made it in time, we'll sit out the blowout in this bunker. As the blowout blows over, Max yet again asks for our help. Apparently the military captured one of their guys and he wants us to assist the assault on the radar to free him. We agree. We have to go up there anyway to reach the path that will lead us to the generators, which are accessible now due to the fact that the military actually disabled the Brain Scorcher. The military here are geared and mean. It's not uncommon for them to kill me in one burst. My fully upgraded Siva isn't really helping much, even with a lot of the plus bulletproof artifacts stacked in my belt. We free the Freedomer, who acts as a mechanic, while Max is willing to sell us some of the stuff they gathered off the military. Well, that's actually the point my gamer senses should have kicked in, and I should have known that I'm not going back anytime soon, or ever. However, for some reason they didn't. In any case, we have some more things to take care of in the radar area. There seems to be some sort of virus in the underground passage that we're meant to pass through. Luckily for us, some medicine was located in a nearby monolith bunker. Only issue, the key code is lost. It can be found on some scientists who lost their lives nearby. After some hard mutant fights which seem to be waves of bloodsuckers like we're in some sci-fi version of Enemy at the Gates, we get the code and meds. There's nothing left but to move on to the tunnel and see where it leads us. The underground complex is a combination of the original Brain Scorcher lab and several other areas. The heavily irradiated areas are guarded by a few leftover zombies and a lot of military. We even have the opportunity to shoot the guy who interrogated us back at Agroprom. So I guess revenge is best served by a Saiga shell to the face. I'm still quite optimistic that I'll get back to the army warehouses since I make the effort to find artifacts and gather loot. The lower levels of the lab are guarded by a pseudo-giant, and as it turns out, rifle grenades are the best way to deal with them again. The giants usually die to one direct hit. The tunnels that lead to the generators are full of bloodsuckers, and when I say full, I mean it. There's close to 20 there. The mod pulls the trick from Call of Pripyat. The bloodsuckers are sleeping, and you're meant to try to sneak past them. However, I want to make the bloodsuckers pay. Not in the revenge arc way, but more in the way that I'll gather their parts and use them to pay off my EXO, which I'll get when I get the opportunity to move back. The area here is literally a tunnel with several ways forward which lead into a chamber. That makes it hard to grenade a lot of bloodsuckers at once. So I throw my initial grenade, retreat back into the tunnel and keep grenading the way the bloodsuckers have to come to me. That seems to work and I mop up the rest with my Saiga. There are quite a few expensive bloodsucker jaws that drop and I'm already happy about all those financial gains I've made. Moving up from the tunnels, we meet our double. Well, I guess it's time to address that very interesting but poorly explained part of the story. Poorly explained due to the machine translation mostly. Apparently the zone now has the ability to create doubles, but only of deceased Stalker project agents. During our playthrough we heard rumors about a guy looking like us moving around the zone, often asking the same things we did to several people. In the Agropromeria we even had the opportunity to see a corpse of a guy Stalkers pulled out of the radioactive swamp. It was one of our doubles. This particular one is standing in front of us, believing that we are some sort of apparition created by the zone. He attacks us, but we shoot him down faster. We fight our way through rats and mutants to finally emerge at the generators. We have to find a lab and end this once and for all. There are monolith patrols all around and they've split the key code to the lab entrance on several PDAs. We move on, eliminating monolith guards and patrols, and this is the first time we actually see a Gauss rifle in this mod. We take it as it is extremely useful to snipe heavily armored monolithians, even if it isn't in prime condition. After collecting the final pieces of the puzzle we descend into the lab. We're immediately hit by the immense concentration of psi energy. Luckily for us, with the artifact setup, fully upgraded Siva and psi block, we seem to be pretty much immune. The game immediately forces us to holster our weapons. Something is up. We're confronted by an invisible being, only known as the unknown entity. What? Did someone actually come here? I can't believe that someone came here from the outside world. How long have I waited for my time? I've been locked here for 16 years with no way out. Are you real? An illusion? A real person? Who or what are you? What do you want from me? I'm here, right in front of you. You can't see me? You people did this to me. You made an invisible abomination, always alone, talking to myself, completely invisible, always, forever. The being disappears. We stumble further through the labs. We move further, only to be confronted again. Why did you come here? I don't understand. What do you want from me? I need to enter the control room. No, you will not go there. I will not let you. Let me enjoy this moment of conversation with someone real after 16 years. What if I can become alive again? Regain a body? Become visible? Take a breath of fresh air, like while I was being created? You see what they did to someone who never harmed anybody? They dragged me here, pushed rusty needles into my face, disfigured me. But I was angry. I broke free and killed all of them. But I can't get out. Something is holding me here. Did the sea consciousness create you? Who else? I know what you want. Do you think anything will get better if you turn it off? What if I can take over your body, become alive and free again? Here. Feel a little bit of the suffering I've experienced, sitting alone here, locked up in desolation. Just let me into the control room and everything will end peacefully. You will never get in there. But are you actually real? Let's see. Next thing we know, we're teleported into another part of the lab. Boxes and lab equipment start hitting us from all sides. We struggle, but still find a way out. After a few instances of where we try to actually get further into the lab, the entity always stops us and throws us into a new pit of anomalies so that we can at least partially understand the pain it went through. This section is obviously very tedious due to the fact that your weapons are holstered. You can't really fight, and the only way to move further is to have enough medkits and similar things with you to tough it out. Apparently the entity also has a great idea, just to take over our body and become real again. Now comes the part that is frustrating, confusing, and I've seen at least one guy quit the mod right here on YouTube. The entity stops us once again, laments about its pain, and rhetorically asks how it can basically kill us. If you tell it to stop and not kill you, you get teleported to another room. Then you just keep floating in the room with more damage mounting up. Any attempt I've made to actually escape the room was unsuccessful. Apparently you have to guilt trip the entity into letting you live by basically offering your life. And no tricks telling it that you want to disable the lab and then you'll give him your body. Actually, that sounded kind of wrong. It won't work. You have to use the most nonsensical option in this case, basically offering your life to the creature. I guess the mod author wanted to portray some sense of morality or goodness left over in the creature from before it actually became whatever it is now. In any case, the entity asks you to free it by disabling the lab, as it was created as a guard. Another test follows, since it seems that the entity can't really make up its mind either, so it takes you to another room with 2 teleporters, indicating that one will lead you to the center of the lab, and the other to a painful death. So basically, let fate and the save button decide. We move further, disable the pods and run out of the lab only to be confronted by what looks like Kalancha and a huge blowout that's brewing in the distance. We've met Kalancha before and we've been on his heels for a while. We managed to see him and talk to him once in Limansk, but the whole occurrence was strange and portrayed almost as an illusion. When we came back to Limansk to check on his hiding place, he was gone. Several stalkers also told us that he was dead and there was proof of that. This ties into one of the greater mysteries of the mod, that is the sequence of appearing doubles in the zone. And once again, good health to you, Comrade Demidov. You still don't understand, do you? I'm not the real Kalancha. That scientist died a long time ago near the brain scorcher. Judy was correct. They identified the body. What you see before yourselves are only projections of people who were once agents of the sea consciousness. Have you ever heard anything about Project Stalker? What's going on? The zone was destroyed. What agents? I will try to explain it, although it is complicated. I am the zone, communicating with you through projections. You were a tool being used to free the zone from its creators. The zone was not destroyed, you have only strengthened it with your actions. Agents are basically slaves of the zone, Kalancha, Skar, Lebedev, these people you heard about, to do its bidding around the zone. They were sent into the zone to eliminate Strelok, but they all failed. I was sent to the zone to prevent the blowout. It was all in vain? You were never sent into the past. There never was a time machine. There was a guide before, but due to unfortunate circumstances he did not accomplish his missions. He was obliterated. Before his death he saw himself in 4 different places and projections. These visions were materialized. There was a spatial rift. There were 4 projections. One appeared, already dead in the swamp in Agroprom. The second one lost its memory in Cordon and died in the Red Forest. The third appeared in the Dark Valley with scraps of its former memory. But you are here, the 4th. Everything that you know is just a mix-up of the memories of the real pilot. You identify as a soldier, only memories of past service in Chechnya, the time machine, a fantasy, dreams, memories, Soviet movies. Think about it, the institute you apparently came from is only a poor reflection of the laboratory X-18 under the Dark Valley. All the people you saw there are people who the real pilot once saw in his life. Demidov. That's the real name of pilot. You were just dreaming and woke up in Limansk. Also, you were sent with broken and old gear. Does that make any sense to you? I don't understand. So what about you? It was all a setup. It was not possible for me to create doubles so freely and pre-program them, but with the big blowout of 2011 it became possible. Everything was created as a special case to lead you here, even with Forrester, with all the major instructions you received. Pilot was the perfect case, to send him and to give him instructions on how to pass. Later I was able to create even more doubles and manipulate them in any way needed. It was another chance for me, as I was not sure which one would succeed and come first. You were both manipulated and it was not planned for you two to meet. It was pure chance, and now there's only one. And I unleashed the emission, not sea consciousness? Exactly. Funny, isn't it? But there was no way you could have foreseen this. You have a right to know before you die. Now enjoy the fruits of your labor from the front rows. We run through the mission and lose consciousness. This would have been a great ending if the mod just stopped here. However, we wake up and meet Novikov once again. Now I barely remembered who he was, and for the most part only because I found it cool that he was the only guy who could do some crucial upgrades on my Siva, since he is the mechanic of the scientists. Novikov tells us that there is a backup generator as the original creators constructed one in case something went wrong. He heard that we went to the generator, so he basically followed us. Now we need to go down, activate the installation, and the zone will apparently be destroyed. What follows is a shorter escort section, not too tedious but not fun either. After we activate the generators, Novikov actually recognizes us as the Stalker pilot. Apparently there are also some news from Rostock. With the emission, a whole building just materialized out of nowhere, next to the factory. There were dozens of people in there, unarmed, dirty, some without eyes, some mute. It seems that the base was stuck in a spatial anomaly. In any case, Novikov tells us, this is where our roads diverge. And so ends the Wind of Time. So, is Wind of Time actually any good? It's quite obvious that I wouldn't dedicate such an amount of time to play through a mod and make a video about it if I didn't think that it was well made and fun. Wind of Time is probably the best mod you can play, at least from all the mods I've played, if your main focus and interest is on story and side content. There is an impressive number of side missions and most of them are not random or procedural. The mod creator put a lot of effort into these missions and they really serve the purpose of enriching the free play core of Stalker with a lot of custom tailored content, which really gives the mod a lot of identity of its own. With free play mods, the differences mainly lie in the way of progression or pure gameplay features that are mixed and matched, implemented and put into action, on a base that is mostly the same. Wind of Time stands out as a mod which shifts focus on its own story, the alternative vision of the zone, and a lot of side content to carve out its own identity among other Stalker mods. Of course, even with the corrected translation, a lot of that might slip through the cracks occasionally, as it can be hard to follow some of the dialogue, but if you decide to dive deeper into the story, it's definitely worth it. I think anybody who is even remotely interested in Stalker modding comes with a healthy amount of tolerance to jank of any kind, so the translation or the occasional bug here and there should not take away from the whole experience. Some of the areas are also redesigned. Most strikingly, that was done with Rostock, which is basically a whole new area with a lot of new content. It's the new hub of the zone and not exclusively a duty base with some loner presence anymore. The changes that I've seen in other areas are smaller, but still add to the new vision of the zone Wind of Time is trying to achieve. The only problem with Rostock is that it's a huge area now with a lot of NPCs, which doesn't really cope well with the engine, as crashes are frequent when you're actually staying too long in Rostock or the army warehouses for that matter. It seems that the crashes are always happening in areas where there is a big concentration of NPCs. While the custom content along with the many side missions is the main appeal of the mod, a nice balance was struck with the progression difficulty as well. There are some artificial bumps like the one time the game actually takes away all your cash, which you can't avoid, but the progression is generally easier than in the free play mods, but still feels hard enough and rewarding enough to be interesting. It definitely is harder than the vanilla games, with mission rewards being very modest for the most part. On the other hand, the repair prices are not very high, there is no elaborate system to repair your gear, and getting decently geared is really not an issue per se. As for the story, I found it very interesting, although it has clearly been muddled and it is being held back by the translation. Personally, I dislike that the mod obviously, at least from my understanding, had to duct tape some sort of happy ending for Demidov. I think that Demidov's death after the reveal from Kalancha / the zone would have been very fitting, mysterious, and overall cool. This way the ending slides do tell the story of Demidov and how he continued to act as a guide, taking on his old role as pilot. In any case, this story was worth experiencing and being paid attention to. I also appreciate the fact that Wind of Time avoided the classic Stalker endgame which persisted into Stalker 2, turning it into a corridor shooter against Monolith / military / insert faction here to increase the endgame difficulty. You do not always need a difficulty spike, a boss fight, a grand ending in a combat encounter to actually round up your game. I think the way Wind of Time handled things was fine, and above all less tedious than many of the endgame sequences in the vanilla Stalker games. I wish that there were more mods that took this approach, and that in many cases focused more on the story and the custom generated side content, than just being more value tweaking in the gameplay systems which are implemented into the same sandbox. Sure, I do appreciate Anomaly and all of its offshoots. I even think that free play mods are, in the grand scheme of things, something I personally prefer when compared to pure story mods, but Wind of Time was a refreshing experience I'd like to recommend to anyone who likes Stalker. So, thank you guys for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, please consider subscribing and liking this video. Also, here's a final Wind of Time tip. Don't try saving on the bridge.